AI Mentors is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our podcast, AI Mentors, brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI Mentors cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career.
You're listening to AI Mentors. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Today, we have Ilya Meyzin. Ilya is the Vice President of Data Science, Strategy and Operations for Dun Bradstreet. Ilya, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, JP. I love what you guys are doing with this podcast.
So Ilya, for those listening, please give us an overview of a bit about yourself, your background, and talk about your current role at D&B.
So I'm not what you'd call a classically trained data scientist. I started my career as a strategy and management consultant. And I never specialized in anything. So I was a jack of all trades. I never focused on one industry in particular. I never focused on one enterprise domain. So I did work all over the place in a bunch of different countries and a bunch of different industries, anything from automotive to healthcare to industrial products to, you name it. So back in my previous professional life as a consultant, because I was doing so many things, I ended up having this skill that has proved to be invaluable in my career to adapt to new roles and just kind of like be very comfortable with change and ambiguity. And what I learned, the most important thing that I learned in consulting is that the most important question in life is, what's the question we're trying to answer? And if you approach whatever role you find yourself in, if you ask yourself that question, what's the question we're trying to answer? It's pretty amazing how the rest kind of falls out from the question, and you can start breaking it down and start solving those problems. And it's, I found that it's the same approach whether you're a management consultant working on a project or whether you're trying to solve a complex data science problem. It's the circumstances and the environment are different and the problems are different, but it's pretty much the same approach. So that's how I've been able to bridge from consulting into data science.
Amazing. And I think a lot of what you said will resonate with people listening about the interest, first and foremost, to be passionate about it and be fascinated. That curiosity can lead to a lot of amazing things. So Dun Bradstreet, obviously it's a long-established company involved in many areas of business, but could you tell us a little bit about how your group is utilizing data science to impact the business and some exciting projects you've been involved in?
Dun Bradstreet has a tremendous amount of global data on businesses, and we have some very sophisticated intellectual property and algorithms as well. So putting all that stuff together, what we're working on is advanced anomaly detection. So looking at these ginormous data sets and trying to find clusters that would indicate something anomalous, whether it's anomalous behaviors, anomalous entities, anomalous transactions. And, anomalous can be bad or anomalous can be good. It could be indicative of sort of malfeasance or fraud, but it could also be indicative of some really new exciting business trends starting to shape up in the marketplace. So this is one of the things that we're looking at, and there's obviously tremendous possibilities and the whole wide range of applications to these techniques.
As somebody who leads a large team of very skilled individuals, when you grow your team and you look to fill positions, what are the main things that you look for in an individual, and what can junior people be working on to improve their skill set if they were ever to interview with you?
Absolutely. So I think it's, as everything in life, there's three big areas. One is the ability to differentiate between the myths and the reality, right? And so let me explain what I mean by that. There's a lot of noise today. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence and, how artificial intelligence will replace humans and, there'll be no jobs in 3 years, and in 2 years, 97.38% of jobs will be automated. Look, there's a tremendous amount of noise, and I think the ability just, to have enough of a common sense and business acumen and kind of like commercial acumen to step back and see where things are is extremely important. So, the other thing is a lot of people kind of assume that, we have AI and it's a magic wand and we can just wave it at any problem that is thrown our way, which is, of course, it's absolutely not true. Again, it's a very powerful tool, but AI today is just a collection of models and algorithms that can solve some problems in some cases, given some preconditions. So, it's stuff like that. Just having common sense about where the world is, right? And not kind of, all right, don't worry about it. Just I'll figure out what the latest tool is, and I'll be good, right? So if someone has that approach, I don't think it's a very healthy approach, right? There's a lot of great tools, but you still need to have a lot of hard skills and soft skills. So which gets me to the next point. In terms of the hard skills that young or aspiring data scientists need, look, I would say first and foremost, focus on fundamentals. Math, statistics, tools will change. Math, arguably not so much. Yeah, I read somewhere that there are about 2,500 programming languages existing in the world, and all of that has kind of happened over the last 50 years or so. So do the math, which means every week there's a new programming language being born somewhere. Now, of course, some of them will die out very quickly. Some of them will become as prominent as R and Python. But again, just kind of like to give a little bit of a flavor, when I was in high school, Turbo Pascal 5.5 was all the rage, and I wrote a bunch of code in Turbo Pascal 5.5, and it worked really great. But I'm wondering, if anyone is listening to us under the age of 35, like who has heard of Turbo Pascal 5.5, right? So today it's R and Python. In 5-10 years, it's going to be S and Cobra or whatever comes next. But the point is, like, tools change. It's inevitable. Tools evolve, tools change. Other things don't. So again, math, statistics, if you have that, you will always have that. The other thing is, it's very important to have very solid experimental design skills. So as a data scientist, you effectively will be designing experiments and whatever shape they take, right? Like in a way, everything is an experiment in data science. You're just trying to figure something out. It's very important to have the ability to kind of proactively understand where a source of bias can come into your analysis and proactively deal with it, right? I mean, it's amazing. There's so many times we start doing something very complex without really thinking, all right, like how is my approach biasing the solution? So that's very important. And then the other thing is, still on the hard skills, and Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, talks about it better than anybody else. Just collect as many models and mental frameworks as possible, right? So, if you're a Bayesian, great. If you're not a Bayesian, fine. But if you don't understand this whole Bayesian concept, that's probably not very good, right? And this goes for not just models and statistics, models and mathematics. Again, Munger talks about applying models from any discipline, right? Biology and whatever. So these things are incredibly powerful. So I think this is the hard skills. And then there's this whole section of soft skills that are equally important. First and foremost, as a data scientist, people need to understand that they don't do these things in vacuum. Like, they really have to understand the business where they work, the business problems, the challenges in the marketplace, competitive dynamics. So if you can be that data scientist who can operate both as a data scientist but also as a business person, so your value in the marketplace is going to be just tremendous. You'll be able to do really, really powerful things. I talked a little bit about understanding the problem, right? What's the question we're trying to answer? I'm sure, JP, you have seen it a million times, and all the listeners have seen it too. We get excited about solving a problem, and we kind of like run off and start doing things, and things evolve, and everybody's working super hard, and there's, like you're in the office until midnight, and then you step back and it's like, wait, what are we doing? So that's bad, right? That should never happen. So that ability to constantly step back and kind of like monitor yourself, should I be doing this? Is this actually what we said that we will be solving or working on? So that's really important. Does all this make sense?
100%. No, you've
Awesome.
listed out several excellent points there. I think it's very useful indeed. It's important to differentiate hard skills from the bigger thinking. I think it's very easy especially for junior engineers and data scientists coming out of academia, where it's all about the research with no end in sight. As you transition into the commercial workforce, you need to always be seeing it through the lens of how is this going to impact the business? How is it going to improve?
Absolutely.
It's either going to save money, increase revenue, or save time. If it's not doing one of those three things, it probably doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said.
And I think a lot of more junior people want to get it to perfection. Finished is better than perfect, and
exactly.
getting that mindset is very important. It's hard, I get it, but it's important for people to hear that from somebody who is a vice president of a huge organization focusing on this. Your aim is, how is it moving the business forward?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. It's all about results. In the business world, nobody cares about exploring stuff. Nobody cares about this may produce incredible findings. Whatever you're doing, you must deliver tangible, actionable results. And it must be very, very clear that the business can and will benefit from whatever it is that you're doing. So again, like nothing happens in isolation. And then the other thing, you kind of said something that triggered something in my head. So one of the difference from academia, like you don't have the luxury of kind of going away and doing stuff on your own. If you do that in the business setting, nothing will get done, right? You need to constantly communicate with your professional ecosystem, right? The people who are doing these projects for, the partners across the enterprise. If you're a data scientist at a big company, you will be interacting a lot with folks in technology, with folks in data governance, with folks in legal, with folks in finance. You can't really have those conversations in formulae and Tableau and whatever, right? So you need to have really good communication skills, both verbal and written. You need to be able to explain what you're doing, why you're doing it, how will the business benefit from it, and when it comes to it, it's funny. Everybody hates PowerPoint, and PowerPoint, some people think it's a, professional weapon of mass destruction, and it may very well be. But the business world communicates in PowerPoint, right? So it's not enough to, whatever it is, Tableau or any other brilliant, powerful visualization tools. It's great if you know how to do all that, but you need to be able to translate that into short, succinct, and very, very clear PowerPoint presentations. And it's actually, it's much more than just learning how PowerPoint mechanically functions, right? Consultants spend a tremendous amount of time on teaching junior folks how to create good presentations. It's a much harder skill than people appreciate. So, again, you can be the most brilliant person doing the most brilliant things, but if you cannot communicate them verbally and in a written form, you're going to be in trouble. So it's definitely worth investing time into those areas.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important points you've made thus far, and it's something I would want to follow up on. If you were brought in to lecture a university of your choosing who was teaching a class on data engineering and data science, and you had to get a message across on the importance of communicating the work and advise a classroom on, okay, what you can be doing in your own personal time to help you along the way. What would you share with them? What could an individual be doing now to help them understand that aspect of the role? Because a lot of people working in data science and data engineering, super intelligent, may be slightly introverted, may not be as strong on the communication side, but are smart enough to work to improve on that. So any advice you could give there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and again, like I go back to Warren Buffett so many times. He always talks about how when he was starting off, he was a horrible communicator and a very shy public speaker. And then he ended up taking a Dale Carnegie public speaking course, which he says changed his life, right? So, I think it's a misconception that great public speakers are born. There's so many examples that are counter that myth. Like Churchill was not a great public speaker. He taught himself how to do it. So, I think one area, verbal communication, I think it's definitely worth investing time in some sort of formal public speaking training or courses. There's some really good ones. If you spend a little bit of time doing that early on in your career, it will serve you tremendously well for 5-6 decades. So that's definitely worth doing. And then in terms of written communications, there's so many starting points. There's a famous book that's called The Pyramid Principle. I think the author's name is Barbara Minto. So it's kind of like, if you're a consultant, you're going to get that book on your first or second day on the job, right? And it's called the Pyramid Principle, is because so you always start from the top, right? Like, what is it that we're trying to do? And then everything falls out from that. So, and you can apply that to writing, business writing, you can apply that to problem formulation, you can apply that to anything. But, I think originally she wrote that in the context of how do you communicate effectively in written form. So that's a good place to start, right? And then that will give you a good idea of how to branch out. So very, very tactically, I would say definitely worth investing time and reading up on that. And any type of public speaking training is always phenomenally valuable.
Some very useful points there. Finally, then, Ilya, looking at your previous hires, the good, the bad, the in between, if you were to look at a correlation like any good data scientist does, your best hires, what has made them stand out from the crowd? What can people focus on to develop those skills?
I think, look, first and foremost is the ability to get things done. And you know that I wanted to say something else, but just get things done. Everybody is extremely busy. Everybody is working on 70,000 things. Nobody has time to solve problems for you. So you need to learn how to own something, start to finish, and do whatever it takes to solve it. And it can be little things, right? As a junior person, you probably start with somebody dumps a huge data set on you and tells you, go figure something out in this data set. And then in the first 20 seconds, you find out that the data is very, very messy, and you don't understand exactly how it is messy, and you have to figure it out. Then you realize that it's not actually the right data set for the problem that they asked you to solve. You have to go and just deal with all those things on your own and solve it. Of course, you can ask questions and you can ask for help and you can ask for direction, but just get it done, start to finish. So that's number one. The second thing is probably the sort of concept of like just being comfortable with ambiguity and change. And, you and I talked about this. If there's one thing that I can guarantee to anyone entering the workforce now or, junior professionals, you will not have the luxury of doing just one thing throughout your career. You just won't. Things change too much, and businesses change, and business models change, and tools change, and problems change and there's disruption this and there's AI and then there's IoT, things will change. So, the most successful folks that we have been fortunate to hire have the ability to just deal with it, So things change, they figure out how to get things done. So, and it's funny, right? I mean, the two things that I mentioned are sort of like in the soft skill bucket, right? Like I didn't talk about, and we have superb people who can code starships in R. Yeah, of course, that you need that, but that's almost table stakes, right? Like, of course, like if you're hiring a data scientist and the more senior of a data scientist you're hiring, of course, you have the expectation that they will have a very, very solid technical, statistical, and mathematical background. What do you do with those skills? That's really what differentiates data scientists, in my opinion. Like having that ability to go and talk to folks on the business side and just like figure things out. That's what makes the best data scientist, in my view.
It is always, always, always at the top of everyone's list is not the technical proficiency, it's the ability to communicate, interact, and the higher level thinking that will always separate people from the crowd, which should fill people with hope because that's something that anyone can work on and develop over
Absolutely.
time.
Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week, we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.